All right, my friends, it's that time. Looks like we're going to have an intimate little group here. So I like that. It's going to be, we might be able to engage a little bit more, which was fun. As you see, we're here to discuss emotional intelligence. I think that this is probably one of the most important things that we can teach our children. So many times, a lot of these principles are just assumed that they are going to be taught through experience or through time. And what we found and what I see as an elementary school teacher is that it's not something that can be just left to the unknown. We really need to be teaching them this. And what I like to say is that once they're in huggable distance, they're in front of you, that's the time. Because so many times, in our professions, you don't see them again. And especially in y'all's positions, it can be very, very daunting to get a hold of somebody. And so when we can, we got to take advantage of it. So let me talk to you about who I am. My name is Lance, as you can see from the cards. I gave the cards out. Please feel free to email me with any questions as a K-12 teacher. Please let me know what you liked about the conference, or in this case, the presentation, or what you didn't like. If you want some more information, if you want anything, please feel free to email me. So I've been teaching for over 25 years. I started as a third grade teacher for most of the time. And now I'm a physical education teacher, which was cool because when I was in the classroom, I had my blinders on. I really just focused on those kids. But as a PE teacher, now I see everybody in the whole school. And I'm able to take advantage of that because now we can talk to every single one of these kids. And you'll see how that's an advantage here shortly. My wife is also a VE teacher, so she's a special needs teacher. I have two beautiful daughters. And I've been very blessed in my teaching career. I've won multiple awards. I've won Teacher of the Year, Ida S. Baker Diversity Educator Teacher of the Year, as well as a Walmart Teacher of the Year. And I'm not saying that to toot my own horn, but I'm also very passionate about kids. And I've done a lot of walking. Now it's time for me to start talking, and that's why I'm here today. So let's get into one of the reasons, or all of the reasons why I'm here and we are here. It's kids. I believe that kids are the number one most important people on this planet. They are the ones that are going to help the next generation. They are the next generation. They're going to help society. And the next most important people are parents. They are their very first teachers. And it is very important that we talk to our parents. And that's one of the reasons why I started Best Kids Solutions, is because it's a small media company, videos, articles, different things, website, of course. And once we can start helping our kids and our parents, and of course, our teachers, and when I say teachers, I mean you as well, because anytime you deal with kids, you are a teacher, you are an educator. And so we have that opportunity when they are there in front of us to make sure that that's the case. Now, we can kind of skip this slide because we have a couple new friends, but we kind of talked about this in the beginning, what you guys do. And I have a lot of advocates here, correct? But I didn't get a chance. What do you do?
I manage a rape treatment center.
Oh, that's right. We talked about that already. Yes, you were here very first. And then another friend here came in?
I'm the CEO of Jones Advocacy Center in Fort Myers.
Okay, very cool. And then one more friend came in. Similar? Okay, very good. Awesome. I'm very impressed with the process. The school that I teach at is also affiliated with the Children's Home. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them. They are in Tampa, the Children's Home Network. It used to be CHI or Incorporated. Anyway, these are friends who unfortunately have had a hard time with the placements that they're in, and now they're at the Children's Home. And so we exclusively get those kids, and they come in with a lot of baggage, and they've been through a lot. And so I've been introduced to it through that, but to doing research in the CACs and talking about the impressiveness of multidisciplinary teams, I kind of always think of you guys as when everybody's working together to help children, almost like the Avengers. Everybody's different people, different skills and abilities, and everybody's coming together for a common goal, and there's no better common goal than kids. And so I've always been impressed, as you can see in here, that we can really be more efficient with this process, and I thought that was pretty cool. Now, let me start off with a story. I really believe that stories are just, our brains are just set up for stories. And it starts off with a guard dog and a wise owl. And we're talking about a little fifth grader. And unfortunately, you guys know just as much as I do that in this, we see these situations all the time where the child, their parents are in the midst of a divorce. The parents, both of them, are physically and mentally abusive, not only to themselves, but to the kids. And the siblings and our little friend are really having a hard time. Such a hard time that it's starting to show in school. Our little friend is having multiple fights. He's in multiple fights. He's in the principal's office all the time. And it's just a sad story and things that we hear all the time. But one day, he was on the playground and a group of kids were teasing him. And you know how kids can be, where as soon as there's some sort of weakness or something that they can pick at, they will. And this group of kids were really picking at him. And his usual MO is to go handle his business. He's going to go and make sure that doesn't happen again. And that's what he sees at home. He sees the physical, and he's going to go do that as well. And the teacher noticed this and stood up as he was walking toward the kids. And as he walked toward the kids, she got a little bit faster. And as he raised his fist at these kids, she started running toward him. But as she was running, and luckily for her, she was far enough away, given this situation anyway, that he put his fist down and took a step back. And she kind of slowed down and was watching. He turned around and he left. And the teacher, kind of out of breath, was like, oh my gosh, thank you. Because he's been known to take care of some business. And she didn't want to have to go through that again. He didn't want him to have to go through that again. But what she did notice is him walking away and playing with some other kids. And she was like, wow, I didn't expect that at all. So the whole day she was thinking about this. What was going on? And so finally at the end of the day, they're all packing up, and she brought the kid back and said, hey, listen, you got to tell me, like, what did you do? Like, I saw you coming up physically ready to pop these kids, and I heard that there was a little bit of a skirmish there, but I noticed that you stopped. You got to tell me. I'm super proud of you, but what did you do? He said, well, he kind of confessed to the teacher. He said, well, I've been having some hard time at home, and it's really been bothering me. But I remember in PE, we talked about emotional intelligence. We talked about how I have this barking dog in my brain. And I really identified with that because my barking dog is always barking. And they told me that this part of the brain is made to alert us, but so many times, my brain, I'm always scared and I'm always afraid and always concerned, and it's always barking. But I also learned that there's also a wise owl. And that wise owl part of the brain allows me to calm down. Once I'm calmed down, that wise owl will fly in and help me make better choices. And so since I needed a little bit more help, we talked about doing what's called a biological sigh. So that's what you saw me do. I took 2 breaths in and 1 out. And the teacher's like, yeah, I saw your body moving up and down. I was wondering what happened. And he said, yeah, and it actually worked and allowed me to realize that I don't want to keep doing this. I don't want to go to the principal's office every day. I don't want to hurt these kids like I see my family doing to me and my other family. I also realized that, maybe these kids are like me. Like maybe there's something going on. That the reason why they're making fun of everybody. And I realized that I need to make friends. I can't do this by myself. I want to have fun. And so I left, and I was hoping that somebody would play with me. And somebody did. And actually, I made a new friend, and it turned out to be a great day. And the teacher, eyes were as big as the wise owl's. She couldn't believe it, jaw on the ground. And she wasn't a big hugger, and he wasn't definitely a big hugger, but she still gave him a big hug and said, I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy that you were able to do this. And this is just a small story about how we can use emotional intelligence when we're able to give our kids how to control themselves, their brain and their body, and how to understand about their self-awareness, their motivation, their empathy, as well as their social skills. When we can do all this together, we can then turn trauma into triumph. And that's what we're here to do today. And so I hope that that story kind of encompassed how we can use this in a general sense to really change the lives of our kids. And it just takes a little bit of information. And another big part of why we need emotional intelligence is because you guys know more than anybody that COVID really has made a big difference in our lives. So many more instances of mental health that needed to be addressed. And the interesting part about it is when you do your research, during COVID, the instances of maltreatment and abuse went down. But the people who were studying realized that there's a good possibility that it's because they were never reported. Mandatory reporters such as teachers, folks like yourself, weren't reporting it. And so we might have a lot of people, a lot of kids out there that have not been treated for things that they need help with. And so many times we can't always rely on institutions. The only institution that they can really rely on is themselves. And once they have that information, then hopefully that they can help themselves. And obviously, if they can get some help, we would love for that to happen. But as you'll see shortly, that doesn't always happen. Now, we have two different types of intelligences. We have IQ. We all are very familiar with IQ. I deal that all the time, the rational thinking, the cognitive abilities, the problem solving. But so many times we don't talk to our kids about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the way to round out the whole child. And we always, at least here in education, we always see that every once in a while, we'll see a child who's just extremely smart, but can't think their way out of a paper bag. They just don't have any common sense. They don't have any self-regulation. A lot of our gifted kids can be some of the toughest kids that we have to deal with. But many times that's because we haven't allowed them the full picture and both combining emotional intelligence and IQ. Now, I've talked a lot about the benefits of emotional intelligence and how amazing it is, but let's actually talk about what it is. And you kind of got a brief idea of this during the story. The number one is self-regulation, and that's 50% of the problem. So many times, kids are not able to calm that barking dog down. Whether they're talking to you at the center or they're talking to me, so many times that barking dog is just so loud, and then when you have trauma on top of that, then you have a pack of barking dogs barking. And it's so difficult for them to get that prefrontal cortex engaged. And that's what the barking dog is. It's the limbic system, the amygdala, the fight or flight system that is always on for these kids. And it really needs to be calmed down. The problem is that so many times we tell them to calm down, but there's no real way for that to happen because there is no calming down for them. They are in a constant state of alert. That dog is barking all the time. And until we can give them some techniques and tips to calm themselves down, let that wise owl come in, let that prefrontal cortex handle their business, then things will work out much better. We also have self-awareness. When a child is aware of who they are and how they're feeling and what their triggers are and what their negative feedback loop is and just what direction they want to go in, it makes a huge difference. And it makes a huge difference for us because once we know what direction a child wants to go in, then we can help motivate them to do that. And that's the next one is motivation. Motivation is something that is not about listening to cool music and then going out and finishing something on short term. We need to start teaching these kids determination and discipline, doing hard things even though they don't want to do them. And that's not a skill that comes easily. Even for adults, it makes a big difference in giving some principles and some techniques on how to get them moving in the right direction. Of course, we have social skills. You heard about a little friend. He knew from his emotional intelligence training that he needed friends. And we'll see in a moment that not only is that kind of we all need friends, kind of fluffy, to actual new science that has come out and the importance of how this works. And lastly is empathy. Empathy is one of those very difficult things to teach because you almost have to have all of these down pat in order for that to happen. But in order for empathy to occur, we need to have the self-regulation. We need to have the self-awareness. And empathy is something that for our kids in trauma, we really need, that have gone through some tough times. Eventually, in order for them to heal, that empathy is going to have to take place. They're going to have to start seeing things from other people's perspective. The old saying where you can't drink poison and hope the people that hurt you die, because that doesn't work. You just hurt yourself. And so eventually the empathy, at least getting to a place where maybe not forgiveness is not the end point, but at least stop poisoning themselves. And the empathy helps with that. Now, let me briefly talk to you about how emotional intelligence has helped me in my classroom. As I said, when I first heard about emotional intelligence, I was like, oh, here we go. Another, justification of bad behavior because that's the way they feel. In reality, that's not the case. In reality, with all these principles, I really felt that the kids needed this more than sometimes their mean, median, mode and the past participle and the Pythagorean theorem and some of these things they don't learn. They learn it, but who's going to use it unless they're in a specific part of their profession. So we started doing this twice a week and gave them some of these principles, some self-regulation principles, some self-awareness, some of these introducing empathy, and then let them go into skill stations, meaning giving them the choice to where they're going, and gives this a shot. And it actually worked out amazing. Kind of an example that I always give is that as we started doing this more and more, the kids would come up to me less and less because they were able to handle their business, their problems on their own a lot of times. They were able to prevent a lot of these problems. But when there was an issue, because I always said, listen, try to do it yourself, and if you can't, I'm here. Well, sometimes the kids would come up to me, coach, this, and I'd kind of give them the eye, and they go, oh, sorry. They knew they had to take a breath first because they needed to calm themselves down. And some kids needed quite a few breaths. Like, listen, go take a break. You need to come talk because they're a barking dog. And they knew it, but they forgot. And that's the same thing about a lot of these things, is that we forget what we have. And it's basic little things that really can make a big difference. Now, this is where the fun part comes in. I kind of introduced to some of our friends already here. We are going to do something that is called the Finger of Fortune. And what that means is that this is a way for us, for me as an educator, to keep everybody on their toes. And what we do is we get into groups of 3 and 4, and you discuss, in this case, which emotional intelligence component do you think would best help you? Now, you really don't have a whole bunch of details on this, but now that we know about the 5 principles, think about which one of these would best help you in your profession. And so what we're going to do is you don't have to move, that's just some place, it doesn't have to be 3 or 4, just the closest people to you. And then we are going to, you're going to discuss that, and at the end, there's a surprise, and there's a Finger of Fortune coming up, and that will pick that particular person. So I will leave that as a surprise for now, but for now, please get into groups of 3 and 4, discuss it, what would be best for you, and then we'll get back to it. Oh yes, Everybody says that, and I always forget. Like, dang it. I remember thinking, like, put it back to the next slide, and I completely forgot. Thank you for reminding me. And you didn't get a goodie yet. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I was thinking the same thing. If we could somehow blow it up a little bit, you know what I mean? But it
Self-regulation may be making other patients because it goes to yourself as how you're, building that patient. Self-regulation here, empathy here. Oh, I see. Someone else is at the top, which is the those. It could be either one. So, we get both. We get both. So three. So, what would be your choice? What's your website?
You guys are doing great. I wish my kids were as quickly evolved. And you guys just give me a thumbs up when you guys are done. So I don't want to stop you guys until you guys are ready.
I think we're done.
Good? Okay. All right, guys, I'll give it about 30 more seconds to wrap it up. As I said, I'm impressed with the discussion. All right, my friends, let's go ahead and thumbs up. Everybody's good? All right, let's turn back here and let's discuss. And let's let somebody's going to be talking about what they talked about. And this works really well, both for adults and children, because this gives everybody an opportunity to talk about it And then somebody's going to get an opportunity to share what they've learned with everybody else. And it really works really well. But the fun part about this is that nobody knows who's going to be picked. Because, and what this does is this keeps everybody on their toes, everybody talking, because in the back of their mind, like, oh my goodness, am I going to be picked or not? I don't know, So the good news is that the kids know that there's a goodie at the end. There's a treasure box or whatever the case may be. And for you guys, I know Poppets are cool, but they're not grown folk stuff. So I got you guys $5 gift card to Starbucks. So somebody's going to get this here. All right? Somebody's going to get this. Now, of course, if you get picked and you don't feel like you want to share with the group, that's fine. You can kind of tap your partner and let them do the talking. But you're going to miss out on the goodie here, so I'm just saying. So let me talk to you about the Finger of Fortune. The way this works is that somebody's going to close their eyes. I'm going to have you, my friend, do it because you are right here close. Now, with the kids, I typically make them close their eyes and cover their eyes because once the process is known, they're trying to do they're trying to peek. And the way it works is that I'm going to be moving my finger back and forth. And our friend here is going to tell me to stop. And whoever gets picked is the person that will be sharing. Right?
Don't get mad, guys.
That's right. It's completely anonymous. Nobody, there's no favoritism here at all. So if you would do me a favor, if you please close your eyes.
Okay.
And please, I'll let you know when I've started. Please tell me when to stop.
Stop.
You've been picked by the Finger of Fortune. Congratulations. Would you like to present what you guys were talking about, or would you like to pass it off to somebody else?
Oh, I could talk about what our group.
Perfect. That sounds good. So let me know what was, at this point, in the beginning stage of this, what has really kind of stood out for you with emotional intelligence?
Well, the reason why, can I just talk about why I came to this?
Well, yes, yes, please.
That's part of it.
Yes.
Well, because I think that I'm a CEO, and when I see it more is with the staff that I work with.
Yes,
right?
100%.
So you're talking about the kids, I see it with the staff.
100%.
And I think we all agreed, our group is like we're all using this all the time in the work that we do.
Yep.
All these different traits. But I think, your assignment to us was pick one that we kind of are using more often, right?
Right.
Right.
What kind of stood out to you? Yeah.
Yeah, so two of us picked motivation.
Yeah.
And and she's a leader, I'm a leader.
Yeah.
So it's motivating staff.
Yes. A big deal.
Someone picked self-regulation, and then the other one picked social skills.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So we had all different ones, right, from the four of us.
Right. Right. And that's the cool part about this is that there are different principles, but each of us can draw out the ones that we need the most. For leaders, motivation is a huge deal. And you guys make a great point that it's not just about kids. We're dealing with kids, but when you are in a leadership role, CEO, the manager, the facilitator, the coordinator, etc., motivation really makes a big difference. And it's not just about the kids. It's also about, this works for adults as much. And sometimes the adults need it even more than they do, because at least they're starting to get exposed to it. Back in our day, there really wasn't anything like this per se. And so sometimes the adults need it in a leadership role more than the kids. And so you were exactly correct. I figured we would do one more Finger of Fortune, but before I do that, I want to honor my friend here with a good deal. Absolutely. Now, I wanted to let you know that I liked the little golf clap. You guys did it. It was impressive. A lot of times when we do congratulations to the kids, because positive reinforcement is always such a big deal, but what ends up happening is they're not as restrained as you guys are. They're like, yeah, they're clapping. And of course, one kid's still clapping, and I'm like, come on, no, yeah. So what we do is we do a thunderclap. And what a thunderclap is that we get our hands ready, so get your hands ready. And on the count of 3, we're going to do one clap. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and then you're going to clap, and we're going to do one and done. Are we ready? Everybody's hands ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Congratulations. We'll do one more Finger of Fortune because you were the one that got the goodie. You get to be the eye closer if you'd like to be the picker. Nope. All right.
I just want to say thank you for the clap, because as CEOs, we don't get a lot of claps. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I know. it's tough at the peak, isn't it? You know what I mean? Lonely at the top. Yeah. High five it. That's right. That's the truth. So let's do one more. So do me a favor. Close your eyes. And I won't make you cover them. I trust you. And please tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Oh, thank goodness it's not me.
My friend? I think she might have. Yeah, right. I saw her squirt down real quick, you know. So my friend, I give you the option. Would you like to pass or play? Okay, she said, I'll play. So, my friend, what was something that, like I said, I'm giving you the freedom to, what was something that you thought was interesting when you were talking to your friends, or something that you'd like to share?
I think that even though most of us chose almost the same thing,
Which was?
self-regulation.
Self-regulation. Yep, that's a huge one.
Yes, and also empathy.
Yes.
Empathy.
Hmm.
And we almost agree, right? I believe we did. Now, all of them kind of tie in together based upon the situation.
Yes.
The individual and the families.
Correct.
So.
Absolutely. They are kind of like Legos. They kind of connect as they go, and as you connect, it gets better and better and better. You know, so it really makes a good. Let's give my friend a thunderclap for sharing. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right. Well done. Impressive.
Thank you.
You got it. Now, and what you can see is in the classroom, this really does set a tone for wanting kids to talk and wanting kids to discuss, and it's part of our social skills training. Getting them talking is such a big deal. The number one fear, as you know, it's not spiders or roller coasters, it's talking in front of people. And as CEOs and things that you probably aren't like that, but you got people that are working for you. We have our librarian who won't do faculty meetings, and anytime, no, I'm not doing it. She just had a bad experience with public speaking or speaking in general, and that's the way it rolls. And so little things like this, little practice, and that's the one thing that's so important, is that so many times we want to give them the magic pill and be done, but that's not the way it works. It takes repetition, it takes practice, and you have to do it over and over again. You got to give them the first step so they move in the right direction. So let's talk about how emotional intelligence can help I put this on purpose on children, but also with secondary stress staff. Because a lot of you deal with so much just tough situations that you have to hear and listen to. And that absorbs into you as well. And so this emotional intelligence is a big, big deal. Yes?
Before I just walked in here, I ran into our national representative, who I didn't know was here.
Yeah.
Exactly spent like the entire break with me sharing that exact thing.
Yes.
We spend a lot of time in figuring out systems so that the delivery of service is efficient and impactful.
100%.
And this has been our training forever. And I've been here long enough since the late 80s to 90s working in this space.
Right. Seeing the evolution of the whole thing. Yeah.
And what we have not invested in, because all the caretakers and the professionals are known to just do it and get it done.
Right.
We don't spend enough time figuring out, okay, when are we going to invest in the same modality for us?
100%.
Because now, post-pandemic, one of the key things that we notice is that we are losing the current professionals with the experience because it's just another level post-pandemic, mental
Right.
health, et cetera.
Right. Just the
And
burnout. Yeah.
And we have these young professionals who have now a choice with the same degree, whether it be a legal degree, a social work degree, a clinical degree, a medical degree, who now have a choice, and they make the choice.
Yes.
Do I want to go to a place where there's high burnout and not enough concentration in my health?
Right.
Or can I go somewhere else where it may be a burnout but not as high? And quite frankly, we talked about it, the pay is much different.
I was thinking the same thing. Like when you can get paid big bucks, and
Long term, it's a losing strategy
Right.
for our field, so we need
Right.
to spend that time with principals.
100%, please.
And I co-sign completely in what you were saying, and in our discussion, I talked about social skills
Yes.
as one of that, like as a leader.
Right.
Because when you're on the ground as a leader with your team, you see firsthand
Right.
what you're dealing with. You see all of the trauma that comes to you as a provider
Yes.
doing this work.
Yes.
But I work for a multi-tiered organization
Mm.
that I'm trying to say this as diplomatically as possible.
I-
Sometimes the decision makers don't get it. They don't
Thank
get
you.
the work that you're doing because you are in a different sphere.
Yep.
Like we're a rape crisis center, a part of a hospital system
Mm.
that does different work than you
Right,
do.
right.
And so when you're saying we need more resources for teams, all of this, and it's not until attrition happens and you're
Yep.
like, what's happening? Why are they leaving?
Right.
Then
When there's
all of
when
a
there's
sudden,
drama, then they're like, wait, what's
very
going on? Yeah.
active kind of thing. But still, even you get like a crumb,
Hmm.
even with attrition sometimes.
Right, right.
And I don't know.
It's just not enough.
Based
Yeah.
on, my friend, can I call you that? My friend's assessment, how long we'll have these key stakeholders in the work
Right.
remain,
Right.
and what the work will look like a couple of years from now, if that's still the mindset.
Yes.
So that's why I really came here today.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I act as a buffer to my team a lot of times.
Right.
to
You're like the
kinda
force
keep
field.
mo-
Yeah.
Yeah, to keep morale up
Mhm.
and, try to take the hits, but
Yes.
I don't have another me for me.
Right.
You know?
Right. Right. You don't have a force field for yourself and all the rest of that
You
stuff.
know?
Yeah.
That's why I chose in my team, and she mentioned that's why I chose, and we're both leaders here.
Yeah.
My friend over here.
Yes.
Who said motivation, which is
Yes.
key for a lot, and traditional for a lot of CEOs. But I was the one who chose empathy, because
Right.
I appreciate, and I agree with her.
Right.
Where I am, because I'm starting to really appreciate what you just said, what I just kind of vocalized.
Yes.
Empathy is at the center of where I am now, because my team member left, but she saw me, I was here. We are actively having this conversation at our center about what my friend here just articulated and what I also said. In order for us, at least for us,
Yes.
to get a handle on it, and it starts with, as the leader, being as empathetic as possible, or what's it called again? Appreciative listening.
Yes.
And being able to sit back and really take the level of frustration, the concerns, and not being defensive, but being more, okay, where as a leader can I begin to move the needle forward
Right.
in making those changes?
Yes. How can I help you help us?
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference. It's amazing that what you guys just said, because what you have just articulated so well is exactly what happens in the education field. You are taught. I could have said that about teaching, because the same thing occurs. You have these brand new folks coming in that want to save the world, but they're not getting enough resources. They're not getting enough pay. All the rest of the stuff that goes on, and we're talking about stuff where you're not just teaching anymore. You're doing everything else, and you'll see a slide here and what kind of encompasses that. But I appreciate what you guys are saying, and it's so important that we are able to talk about these things, because especially when it comes to empathy, because it's such a higher level skill, at least for children, but even for adults, you have to have that self-regulation to be able to stop and take a step back, because you have goals and priorities that you are trying to deal with. Like you were mentioning, like the hospital has all different kinds of things there, and they don't want to hear about it until there's some drama. So we need to be able to take a step back and calm our barking dog, self-aware, understand where we want to go, the motivation that we need to handle that business, the social skills, the communication skills to communicate that business, and then, like you said, have that empathy, but all-encompassing, that encompasses everything, and it really makes a big difference. So yes, that's exactly why I put that on there, because you guys are dealing with stuff that a lot of folks don't understand. Teachers do, because we're in a similar boat. We have a lot of stuff that we deal with as well, but this is going to be very helpful. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to put some statistics on here, some studies. So, as you can see here, that studies have shown that child maltreatment negatively affects emotional intelligence. And that seems obvious, but that just creates a foundation for a reason to make sure that these kids get this, and our employees, the employees get this, you get this, everybody gets this, because if somebody's been in trauma, somebody's having issues, and there's levels of trauma, but if there's difficulties, there's a good chance that your emotional intelligence has dropped. Self-regulation, regulating emotions and improving emotional intelligence inhibits adverse consequences of childhood maltreatment. So all our friends that we're seeing and working with, by giving them these skills, it helps reduce this trauma. And then for we don't have a lot of therapists in here, but I know you guys probably work with a lot, but it seems that it makes sense. Let's refer them to some good help, some psychotherapy. Let's get them some good trauma-informed information. But as you can see here, if 100 were referred to therapy, 56 would actually go, so half of them don't even go. And the other 30 actually would have completed, so 70% in total don't even go to therapy. Even if you were to say, listen, this is what we need to do, blah, 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 70% don't go. So that's why it's so important that while we're in this huggable range, we got to get them while we can, when they're right in front of us. So let's start getting into some details in some of these here. And the first one is social skills. The social skills is something that really is going to make certain for a child that they're able to advocate for themselves. They're going to make sure that they have that communication skills that they need in order to tell them that they need help. So many times we deal with kids who we want to help them, but they are not able to communicate how they need to be helped or what they need to be helped with. And the same thing goes with employees or people that you work with. So many times you want to be there as a CEO or as a facilitator. You want to help them make the best choices they can make within the information that they have. But when you bring this information up, a lot of times the communication isn't there. They don't feel comfortable communicating. They don't know how to communicate. And it makes a big difference, and it makes an issue for a child's welfare as well, or the bottom line for an employee or an organization. And of course, how to make social connections. I was interesting because the last piece of while I was doing some research, I bumped into the study that said that it blew me away actually, that social connection is so important that with poor social connection, they found that it's just as bad or worse than smoking to longevity. So as you can imagine, human beings are social creatures, but we just didn't know how social we needed to be. And so for kids, that's a big deal. And in organizations, as teachers, we always do the team building and all the rest of that stuff. But that's just the start. But building a community, like a family, it's funny that you guys are using the word friends. We say that all the time. These are my friends. Now, we obviously know that the teachers are not technically their friends, but it's just a way to create a community, to create some togetherness, so that it's not, hey, you, or, oh, that guy, or it's, oh, my friend, And it works so well because it creates that social connection. Now, talking about studies, I thought this was also pretty amazing. And this is fairly new in science, is that we've always kind of, the fluffiness of, make friends and, be social, there wasn't a lot of information about that, but they've come to find out now through this is my super professional scientific equation here that I made myself. Which there's not in any scientific books here. But what happens is that there's such a chemical called tachykinin. Tachykinin is produced in the brain. It's a molecule After trauma, it's produced in the brain, which creates tachykinin. And unfortunately, what this does is that it produces anxiety and irritation, which makes sense evolutionary. Our body is, if there's trauma, then we need to be aware and we need to make sure that we have the energy to do something. But the problem is that isolation also increases tachykinin. So now you have a child in trauma, or you have an employee that's just completely burnt out, and they're isolated. Many times when people are in trauma, they isolate themselves because it's just too much. But the problem is, what we found now is that actually further increases tachykinin. It causes the problem to get worse. Now the good news is that the social connection, that team building, that teamwork, that family environment is something that actually reduces the effectiveness and lowers tachykinin. And it's interesting too, because when it comes to kids, so many times the family that's supposed to be their foundation, that's supposed to be their support, are the ones that are causing the problem. And so we need kids to be able to go out and find their own social connection, or be able to help adults do the same, find means to help lower some of this anxiety, some of this irritation. And this actually proves that the social connection, this is part of the process of maybe being the fact that low social connection is worse than smoking. The tachykinin is so high, and the isolation increases that it becomes a problem for everyone, not only adults, but for kids as well. Motivation. That was one of our friends here. That was the top pick. It makes a big difference as a CEO, or as a facilitator, or as a teacher. There is something that needs to be done, and we need to be able to do that. But we're talking about younger folks, and sometimes the motivation isn't there. The pick you up by the bootstraps isn't there. And so we need to teach kids that it's not about, as I mentioned before, listening to cool music and getting it done when you're motivated. It's about teaching them discipline principles. It's about teaching them that you are going to need to do hard things even if you don't want to do them. That's discipline. And that also comes with employees and people that you work with. There's going to be hard things. And when we're giving an opportunity for people to practice these things, resilience, goals, and persistence, as a PE teacher, I really am a big proponent of exercise, lifting weights, cardiorespiratory endurance, because it's hard. When you lift that weight, it's hard, and it teaches them, and it builds a muscle in their brain called persistence. And when you're able to continue, when it's hard, it builds that muscle. And the same thing happens. We have to give our employees or our kids the ability to practice doing hard things and being able to fail, which is learning. We always teach the kids, losing is learning. And many times the reason why people are winning is because they've lost more than you, because they've learned more than you. And eventually you'll get to the point where you will win. You've lost enough and you've learned enough, you will win. But we have to teach these kids this, and it is such an important part of our activity. Self-awareness is a big one. So many times when a child doesn't know who they are, but we're going through a lot of identity crisis now. And regardless of what that is, they need to know who they are. They need to know what direction they're going. They need to be able to know what their limits and their boundaries are. How far can they go? Noticing their negative thought patterns. And the same thing happens for when you are dealing with folks that you are working with. So many times we don't know where their direction is. We know that they're here. We know that they want to help. But what really is inspires them? What would it need to take it to the next level? And so many times people don't know themselves. They don't know why they're there. They don't know, they just know that they're making a paycheck and they want to help, but nobody's sat down and asked them, like, what's the thing that really pushes you to the limit in a good way and in the bad way, so that you can put your energy into helping these people and helping these kids. And it's amazing as a school teacher, when we sit down and ask these kids, what do you like? What do you dislike? Let's talk about what your favorite thing is, or what do you want to be, or what's your favorite this or that. And once you start getting that information, you're able to critique that treasure box to them. And all of a sudden, the motivation goes up by tenfold, because you're not offering them a trinket that they don't care about. You're offering them the ability to go out extra outside, or you're offering them the ability to go hang out with their favorite teacher. And all of a sudden, now that low input, that low level motivation / work that they're doing increases tremendously. And the same thing happens in an employee standpoint. We don't know, and it happens with teachers all the time. Like, there is no vertical movement for teachers. People are just there for the benefit of the kids. You're not really going to get paid a whole bunch more. There's no extra stuff that you're going to get to do. They've taken all that away. And so a lot of times people just feel stagnant. And they have their own families. So doing a whole bunch of extra stuff can be difficult. And so the same thing could happen with some employees or in the advocacy centers. We have to give them the ability to, or as management, to give them, to figure out what is going to push them. And that comes with questioning what is best for you, what's your self-awareness. And eventually that will transform into higher productivity, and both for kids and adults. And the last one is empathy. Empathy is, bless you, is one of those with it's all encompassing. As I said, it's a higher level process. In order to be empathetic, there's so many different things that has to happen first. You have to be able to you have to have that wise owl come in, that prefrontal cortex that is allowing you the rational thinking. Because right away, when you're trying to be empathetic, you're trying to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. It's not going to happen unless that rational mind is there. Because if you're fight or flight, the amygdala is barking, there's no recollection for anybody else but that brain barking in your ear. The self-awareness to know that that's what you want to do, the motivation to do that, and have the communication to be able to listen and to understand what the other person is saying. And when all of that happens, then you can start walking in somebody else's shoes. You can see it from somebody else's perspective. And if we can start teaching our kids this, but not only our kids, but anybody else, employees or adults, it's something that it changes everything. When you're able to have an all-encompassing whole person reacting and making their best effort with their full intention with emotional intelligence. And can you imagine, children, if we can teach these to these kids, especially our kids in trauma who've already had so much happen to them, to be able to eventually be able to stop drinking the poison. Because the old saying where you drink your poison so that your enemy will die? And that's so many times happens with adults, but in kids too. They're so angry that they're poisoning themselves in order to get back at the people that hurt them. And what we realize is that doesn't work. You're the only one that's getting hurt by drinking the poison. And so in order for that to happen, you have to be able to get that empathetic process started. And that is a huge part for helping kids and adults. And lastly is self-regulation. Self-regulation is something that it really is the foundation of all of this. Because as I mentioned before, you can't do any of this if the dog is barking. If your amygdala, your fight or flight is just too much, none of this is going to happen. And we're going to be talking about different techniques and skills that are going to help you with this. But one of the things that I find very interesting is cognitive reappraisal. And this can help kids dramatically, but this helps me and all of will help all of you just as much. And the easiest way to explain this is an analogy. So let's say you're driving to the conference or to a meeting. It's a very important meeting. You left yourself 15 minutes. Good professional always make sure they can get there a little early if they can. And a little bit of traffic. You finally get out of the traffic and you get behind grandma or grandpa. And you are just, you're looking at your watch and you're thinking, oh, I can't believe that. And grandma and grandpa is driving at 10 miles under the speed limit. Which in Florida, it's a sin, you know? I mean, these folks, they don't play when they're driving, right? And so you can bang your fist on the steering wheel and honk the horn and cuss and all that stuff, but grandma's not going any farther. Grandpa's not speeding up. And so you have a choice to make. Cognitive reappraisal works like this. You think, maybe what if that was my grandma or my grandpa? And I know how grandpa loves to do his drives, and he doesn't get out much, so he's enjoying this. And it becomes a scenario where now that barking dog, you can't do anything about it anyway. So you might as well change your own reality to fit what's going to calm you down. And that makes a big difference because there's so many things that we can't handle, we get so aggravated with. And kids in trauma or people dealing with trauma or dealing with employees, you told them 1,000 times not to do that and they did it again. Now obviously there has to be consequences, but for that moment in time, that cognitive reappraisal, the empathy comes out, and you start thinking, maybe my philosophy is if you have to assume something, you might as well be positive until it shows that it's not. And of course, as a school teacher and as hardworking professionals, as leaders, there has to be consequences for that. But there's no consequences for grandma and grandpa that's driving 10 miles. That is what it is. Once you calm yourself down, you can start thinking of strategies to get yourself out of that. Is there a passing lane coming up? Is it maybe they're keeping you from getting an A ticket, which in turn will keep you from going to the meeting completely? You start changing your thinking, and it makes a big difference, at least in the moment. And you can start using that prefrontal cortex, that wise owl part of your brain, and the decision making increases dramatically. And that's what we need for kids. We need their decision making to be better. It's all about the little choices. Same with our employees, our leadership. The better the choices, the better the outcome. Now, this is something that I talked about in the beginning of when we were all kind of sitting down about, I was telling my friend here that we're going to be talking about some science that's fairly new and interesting, but there's also some things that we are going to need to come back to. And part of self-regulation is calming ourselves down so that prefrontal cortex can be engaged. And I found this very, very interesting because this gentleman here, Dr. John Diel, is a neurosurgeon, and he helps folks with seizures, epilepsy. And the interesting part about this medicine is that if they know where the seizure is coming from in the brain, they can treat it, either with surgery or with medication, and it actually improves the life of the patient or the quality of life of the patient considerably. The problem is that when you don't know where the seizure is coming from, it's very difficult. And some people are just unlucky. They don't know. So what they started doing is they started, unfortunately, taking people's skulls off, putting like a grid on there, almost like a battleship grid, and when they had a seizure, bing, it would show them. Which makes a lot of sense, right? The problem is that you can't make somebody have a seizure. So these folks were sitting around the hospital with their brains open, with the battleship game on their head, and they're thinking, listen, there's got to be a more efficient thing to do. There's got to be something that we could do while this is happening. And what they've come out, as you can see with the slide, is that they started doing scans on people's brains who were taking deep rhythmic breaths. Some of this stuff that we know is true, but like, whoa, do we really know? So they started putting it on scientific paper. And we're not talking about super yoga master breathing. We're talking about regular box breathing, regular deep breaths, rhythmic breathing. And as you can see, that on the brain scans, when they compared the brain scans of the people that were taking deep breaths, it mimicked people were on anti-anxiety medication. We have the medication in the brain already, per se. It's our body. It's the diaphragm. It's the ability to calm ourselves down. But so many times we don't use that. We don't use it. And so training, the first thing that comes out of my mouth in the beginning of the school year, we're talking about breath. Like, come on, coach, let's do some basketball. We're talking about some breath. Because somebody fouls you in that basketball game, you need to be able to self-regulate that. Somebody says something to you that you don't like, you need to be able to calm that barking dog down. And it happens in the beginning, and I am very passionate about this. Like I said, it's something that we all have inside us already, but nobody really talks about. I equate this to a child falling down all the time. Why is this kid falling down? Does he have like an ear problem? Is his balance off? Well, no, it's because his shoe is untied. And nobody's helping him with his shoes. He doesn't know how to tie his shoes. So eventually you teach somebody to tie their shoes, they stop falling down, and all of a sudden you find out the kid is actually really fast. But it's just a basic skill that we need to teach these kids and us adults, that it's about breathing. And everybody kind of foo-foos it down the road, but as you can see, it's legit. It is absolutely legit, and I recommend highly to the leadership, to employees, facilitators, talk about breath, because it is something that may be difficult to bring up because everybody's like, oh, here we go. But it is so important. Please.
My teammate is right here, so right there.
Yes. Hey. Hi there.
Ray ran into my office. What was it again? Thursday. Okay, what did you say? Who's breathing?
Oh, yeah.
Right. And, yeah. Then you. And,
Told her why it was exactly.
yes. And as CEOs and as leadership, it has to trickle down, because when our employees' barking dogs, the amygdala is interfering with this rude rational thinking, it makes a big difference. And you can see when things are tense, nobody's breathing. That's not a good thing. We all need to breathe. But as you can see, it's even more than just breathing. It's releasing that relaxation chemicals. And I highly recommend that whether you're dealing with kids, I've talked to about, people that are doing forensic interviewing. I can't imagine having to talk to a child and make them relive and give them information about the worst thing that's ever happened to them. I can't even imagine that. But I can guarantee you that if somebody asked for my advice, I would say the number one thing is to make sure they're in the right space, the mind space, so that they can give you the information that you need, and they can do it in a rational and calm manner. I don't care what strategies you use, If they're not in the right space, it's not going to happen. When you're in that meeting with somebody and you're needing information from them and they're nervous and they're having an issue, they need to be able to get into a spot to where they can give you the information so that you can help them help us. Makes a big difference. One of the things that I like to use with the kids, it's called infinity breathing. I highly recommend it for yourself, for your employees, etc. And what it is it's the ability to kind of give a visual representation of breathing, but it also gives you a tactile version of our breathing. And the way it works is that you can put on a piece of paper and do it. And the way it works is you breathe in and you breathe out. And you breathe in and you breathe out. But sometimes you need that tactile version. So everybody kind of do it with me. It's kind of cool. If you put your hand out, put your finger in the middle, and then do the same thing. Make an 8, an infinity sign, and breathe in and breathe out. And because you have that tactile, that feeling on your hand, it's a distraction. Now you're breathing. And it just takes a second, and all of a sudden you're in this good spot. And so anytime there's a situation where a kid really needs, and I give them the eyeball and like, you need to take a breath, and the breath doesn't work, hey, go hook up the infinity real quick. And they know what I'm talking about. And they're like, okay. And they're like, they're in the corner, you know what I mean? But when they come back to me, you can see it in their face. It's a different kid. It's a different employee. It's a different person, whoever you're dealing with. Now, this is something that I found super cool. It's getting into the newer technology. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of EMDR, and that's something that's actually a therapy that needs to be done with a therapist, a professional. But there's biological aspects to this that makes a big difference that we can use because it's just our biology. And the biology is this, is that when your eyes are moving back and forth, it's mimicking moving forward. When you're moving forward, it means that there's probably not any danger. Because when you're in danger, you're typically moving backwards or you're frozen. And so by being able to move your eyes back and forth, it slows the amygdala down. That barking dog starts to go away just by your eyes moving back and forth. And so there's a lot of different techniques that you can use with that because it stops the fight or flight portion of the brain. Now, what I recommended to some folks that were here yesterday, and this is, of course, this is just for you to put in your own tool belt. This is a skill that you can put into your tool belt, and if it works, it's great. If it doesn't, but I always thought it was cool, and I'm planning on using this in class as well, is when the people are, whether they need to be telling a story, meaning some information that they need. This was for forensic interviewing, or for a child who is talking in front of a group and they're very afraid because, the finger of fortune picks them like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. We give them the way out, but eventually they start realizing that if I don't have to speak, then I just cannot pay attention. So we're starting to build that skill with them. But wouldn't it be cool to have 2 different cool looking pictures or animals and say, listen, when you're talking, rather than looking at everybody looking at you, look at the animals and then give what you need to say. And it calms them down, it gives them a distraction. Now, obviously, you can't do this in a public speaking scenario, because if you can imagine, if I was doing this, everybody would think, oh my God, what is he doing? You're like, oh, that dude's nervous. He's using the EDMR on the right. So that's not something, but that's a great practice. You see what I'm saying? You're practicing the ability to talk in front of people. This is just an example, or whatever, whether it be a person giving information, but this is a way to practice that. And this is legit science, and I felt that it was very cool. And at the very minimum, when talking to an employee or talking to a child, so many times we sit down and we want to talk to them, and this makes sense, because we're here, we're talking, but what about taking them for a walk?
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, now that natural eye movement is happening, and all of a sudden they're calmed down, they're moving forward, and now you can have a conversation that's coming from the wise owl portion of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, and not, oh my gosh, can he see the salad in my teeth? Is my breath okay? You know what I mean? Oh, am I in trouble? Now they're moving, and now we can get to the space that we need to be to produce the information that we need. Another time for some discussion. But I have to be honest with you. I'm using you as guinea pigs today for my classroom. We did this yesterday. My friend in the back, Isabella, can attest. It was cool, right? I don't want to give too much away. But rather than the finger of fortune, which is cool, we are going to do something different. Similar system, you're going to get in groups of 3 and 4, or the groups that you were in before. And you can discuss, now that we've had a better idea of emotional intelligence, kind of some strategies, some things that you've learned, some new science, some things that may or may not benefit you, and talk about what would be best for you now that you have some more detail. What was something that really stood out to you? Or whatever you thought was interesting and how that can help you and the people around you. So we're going to do a quick group deal, and then we're going to pick somebody, but I will have to tell you that we're picking using a beach ball. So be ready for that. Are we ready? All right, go ahead. We're going to see if you guys give it the thumbs up. If you guys give it the thumbs up, then we're going to use it in class. It was the bilateral eye movement. It was the breathing techniques, and any of the emotional intelligence components. Now that you got a little bit better idea of them, which is there a change from your original answer, or is there something new that you thought is this more is better for what you guys do? So just whatever feels good. Yeah.
That's good.
All right, guys, we're going to give you 1 more minute, so keep going. We got 1 more minute. All right, my friends, come on, back on me. The beach ball is out, and we are going to give this a shot here. We'll see how you guys do with this. So let me know when you guys are ready. We'll give this a shot. So as I mentioned, the Finger of Fortune is great, but we figured we'd step our game up because you got to have a lot of tools in the toolbox here. And what we're going to do with this is, and I have to tell you a quick funny story. I was going to bring a balloon, and my wife was like, "Just use the beach ball. It's cool." I was like, "Okay." Well, I didn't realize it was such a big beach ball, luckily there was this nice young lady, and I was like, "Could somebody do me a favor and blow this thing up?" And I thought it was like and she was like, and I was like, "Oh my God!" I was going to give her anyway, but what's that?
Practicing for her emotional intelligence.
Yes, this is actually one of the strategies I'm talking about, incidentally, but in a little different manner. But the way it's going to work is that similar situation. I'm going to pop this out to you guys, and you guys are going to kind of pop it back and forth for a certain amount of time, and I'm going to give you a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and wherever the beach ball lands, either to you or closest to you, you are going to be picked for the person who would like to share and to get the goodie as well. So you guys ready to try it? This will be kind of fun. So what we're going to do now, there's not as many folks this time, so you're going to have to do a little bit. You're going to have to pop it up. Please don't. I know you guys were getting friendly, but please don't spike your neighbor. You know what I mean? I know you get the volleyball action. You know what I mean? We're all competitive here. This would be my tendency. But so what we're going to do is I'm going to pop it out to you guys. You just kind of pop it back and forth, and then we'll go from there. Are you guys ready? Everybody get your hands ready? Everybody's hands ready? Yeah. I don't know, those nails are long. I don't know, you might have to elbow that joint. You might elbow it. It's all good, you got it going. All right, here we go. She's competitive, I can see it in her eyes. Are you ready? Keep it going. There we go. Oh, go get it, you. I'll get it. And 7, 6, 5. There we go. 4. Oh, there we go. 3, 2, 1. Ah, got it. Oh, my friend. That's karma. That's karma. Am I right? Yes. Oh, that's the best. Not even a better person. That's the best. So I'm going to give you the opportunity. Would you like to pass or play? You're gonna. Fate has chosen you. So yes. So please go ahead and share what you guys were talking about and something that you thought was interesting.
So initially we discussed the social skills as being extremely important.
Yes.
While also maintaining the self-regulation and the self-awareness, which
True.
all ends up playing a part within itself.
Yes, all connected. Yes.
So important to have that self-regulation because without that, we aren't able to tap into our empathy. We
Correct.
cannot tap into those effective social skills that are going to help us deal with
Yes.
not only MDT partners, but also the families when they're in this emotional state that it's extremely unregulated. In order
Yes.
for us not to impose our own feelings, our own irregularities in that moment on them, that we don't know where that boundary is.
100%.
Everything becomes blurry. You don't know what's your feeling. You don't know what is theirs. So that regulation is extremely important for us. And at least for me, something new that I learned today, and I'm really grateful that I'm here for that.
Thank you.
When it came down to the tachykynin, is that
Yes,
what it is?
tachykynin. Yeah. Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
For me, particularly, isolation, like I require some type of isolation in order for me to be able to process my emotions that I experience throughout the day and so many energies that I come
Yes.
across.
Yes.
But then over time, it's like, man, I'm so comfortable in my own space. Like I'm in my bubble. It's safe here. I mind my business here. But not knowing that those levels are increased that mimic that anxiety and that inflammation within the body, which is what pretty much puts our own health to crap.
Yes.
So learning that was like, okay, social skills for sure. I'm gonna try my best to isolate less often.
Yes.
And incorporate more community for my own well-being.
Yeah, 100%.
And also sharing that with clients. trauma response is that isolation. They don't want to leave their room.
Right.
They don't want to engage with anybody, and what we want the most is to be able to continue trying to experience these daily routines, these activities that they like, as hard as it is to want to engage during those moments. But
Right.
it's so important to try to maintain that normalcy, despite the really shitty situation
Yes.
going on. for
Yes.
everyone.
No, you're 100%. No better way to say it than that. Yeah.
These are very heavy feelings, so really sharing that with our clients and their families, that this is an effect of that isolation that can continue increasing those feelings of anxiety, those really irregulated emotions. So thank you.
Yes. No, and thank you. Let's give our friend a thunderclap. Here we go.
Oh, I'm so tired. We're so
I know we're untraining here, All right, here we go. You ready? Hands ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Very good. Thank you so very
got
much.
too excited.
I know, right? Well done. And I'm so pleased that was you because I knew you were going to have good answers, but you were trying to duck before, So she was 100% correct. When you're in a healthy space, taking a break in isolation, there's no better way to refocus. But when you're already in trauma, you're already in a situation, and by isolating it further, that's when the tachykining comes in. You know what I mean? And so many times the families, the children, the employees that you're working with, they have already absorbed some of this stuff. Even though it may not have happened to them per se, what happens to your child happens to the parent. I can tell you that. We feel it more than the kids sometimes. And so when you're dealing with parents, as you mentioned, and clients and kids, being able to let them know that when you're able to move forward and do some of these activities that are more social, it really does make a big difference in the brain chemistry. What I don't want this to be is I don't want this to be one more thing that you guys have to do. I know you guys do 1,000 other things, but having this in your tool belt really makes a big difference in your toolkit, And we see this all the time for teachers, you know what I mean? That you're just piling on the hats. You're not just an educator anymore. You're the coach and the mentor and the nurse and the referee and the counselor and the therapist. And that really is true. But what I found as being a third grade teacher as well as a coach, that when you start incorporating these emotional intelligence techniques, a lot of these hats go away on their own. And for leaders and for employees, that's what we want. We want some of these hats going away on their own, because when their kids are able to handle this stuff on their own, because they want to and they can, or when the employees can handle some of this stuff on their own because they can, then it makes everybody else's life easier. And it really, the process and the efficiency goes up considerably. Please.
Say something. I think one of the things that the group I was in talked about was the exacerbation of COVID, and especially when you do trauma work.
Yes.
Sometimes you can be so engrossed in it, you don't identify the signs when you're being triggered or different things, because you're always on go mode for the clients.
The dog is barking, it's barking, and there's nothing else.
And
Yeah.
then what COVID did was highlight a lot of things that maybe was unaddressed. And I know a lot of times too, I have team members, they have aging parents, people are getting sick, they're getting sick. Life is happening outside of the sphere of your trauma response that you do. And
Right.
so it's like now you're wearing more hats than
Yes.
you did
Yes.
pre-COVID.
Right.
And I think sometimes when, I wish everyone had this class, because it goes back to my previous statement about kind of being empathetic to what people are going through and being
Right.
able to pivot
Right.
to support those team members, because sometimes it's not that they want to be like missing or not fully engaged. but
Right. Because they can't be at that time, because they're balancing so many hats and juggling so many balls that all of a sudden, when you're balancing hats and juggling balls and then you have a task in front of them and you wonder why they can't do that, it might be
brain fog or whatever.
Correct.
And or having them be able to pull away to learn these skills of emotional regulation and all of that when it's constantly go 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 go.
right.
I don't know if I made just sense.
No, you're exactly right, because this plays into my analogy before, is that nobody's teaching them to tie their shoes.
Yeah.
They're wanting to run before their shoes are tied.
Yeah.
And so you almost have to say, listen, these are the skills to tie your shoe. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm super fast. Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe how clear thinking I am and how much more efficient I am. And the clients that I'm working with are like way more appreciative. And wonder, well, it's because you gave them the techniques. You've tied their shoes for them, and now they're running, and they're running on their own. There's a perfect way to say that. So let me quickly, we're getting to the end here. I don't want to keep you too long. I want to mess with y'all's happy hour. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to try to get you out quick. So some of these things that the breathing stuff is super important. For kids, the infinity breathing works feather, blowing up a feather, blowing up a beach ball or a balloon and letting it go around. You can also say that they're blowing in the negative air and letting it go out of your body. The color breathing is a big one. Breathe in something good, breathe out something bad. And of course, bring out the bubbles for the kids. Hey, put the bubbles out for the employees and let them blow. They're, oh yeah, they're thinking it's, look goofy. And all of a sudden everybody's like, man, I'm like, I feel pretty good,
I worked as a preschool BPK teacher for quite a few years.
So you feel what I'm saying. Okay, thank you.
Yes. So once I came into child welfare, one of the strategies that I would use with the children when they were in their own state of discomfort was the
Yep.
START technique. And I'd have them to stop, take a deep breath,
Yes.
relax, and we just like do it all together until they relax.
Yes.
And move on to the following activity.
And that's beautiful because it does multiple things. Because when you're dealing with kids, you want to make sure that there's multiple levels of learning. Because now they're seeing it, they're hearing it, they're feeling it, all of these different things. And so that's what you really need to do, incorporate. I could tell you got that skill because you incorporate all the levels of learning. And that's perfect. And that's exactly what we want. Another one that I thought was super cool, and I don't know if anybody deal with virtual reality at all? You guys mess with that a little bit? I think that the Shriners Hospital is using this now for treatments that are uncomfortable. It can't be used for everything, but they pop those things on, and the kids are like, ooh. And all of a sudden, that bandage that needs to be changed, the cast that needs to be taken off, the exam that needs to be given, all of a sudden, they're like, are you done? Keep going. Let me keep playing this game. And this could be used for so many different things. Stress reduction, before somebody needs to talk about something that's painful, being in a different world that's calming, makes a lot of sense that amygdala goes down. And some of these, I thought was other things that were cool for our friends who are in legal situations or when kids don't understand, or even in adults really, on where someplace new, giving the kids the ability to see the courtroom ahead of time makes a big difference. Or having a person be in front of desensitizing for adults. Put in the VR glasses and be in a whole group of folks, or like a crowd setting, you know what I mean, for employees that are having a hard time speaking, or whatever the case may be. The technology is pretty amazing nowadays. And they have software. I know that University of Central Florida is working with veterans and PTSD right now. So the process and the software is getting better and better. And then the last one is trauma positive stories. When you tell a story, it's inertly connected to our brain. We've brought up around the campfire, around the kitchen table, telling stories and learning lessons. So telling kids positive stories about people who have overcome their trauma, or adults that people that have come from nothing and went from something. When you start telling these stories, they really connect with people because that's part of their mental process or connection.
That's what gave me a great idea. I think one of our things with our MDT is that we tell and listen to these stories, but the MDT normally is in the triage.
Right.
Responsive.
Correct.
I think what we don't do in our MDT, which might be a good idea, is making the time positive stories where you've done the trauma, the immediate response, you have the successes, but bring it full circle.
Right.
I think when the successes happen,
Yep.
we hear about it,
Right.
we try to do it for grants and all that good stuff.
Yes.
But then it goes into the ether, and you go back to those trauma, not so positive stories. So that might be a way of one of the tools that we can use to help that MDT experience
100%.
be less traumatic, because it gives you the full circle, the trauma positive stories, as well as, of course, the
Yes, and you will find that when somebody is telling a story, especially with, morals and stories have been around for centuries, millennium, forever. And the reason why that is because when you tell that story to somebody, they're going to get the lessons a lot quicker than if you told them, this is what I'd like you to do, A, B, C, and D. Or you could tell them a story about a person that did A, B, C, and D, and you'd be amazed how much of the retention occurs. So in that setting, when you are telling these stories, not only is it going to be a great way to positively reinforce something when it comes to a positive story, but any lessons that are in the story are just inertly more connected because that's the way the brain works, and it makes a big difference. So if you can connect that in to something that can be multilateral, that'd be perfect.
And what's vicarious in that scenario is what's left is the positive emotion
Right.
of something that was pretty tragic.
Yes, and you're left with a positive.
It sits with you.
Correct.
What sits with you in the other scenario is all that was just bad. It was hard.
Nobody wants to hear about a negative or negative stories can be beneficial for what to do, but you get so much more out of the positive story, 100%. This is something that I wanted to show you guys, and then we'll wrap it up, because you guys deal with this so much, and I really want to make sure that you guys are taking care of yourselves and using these strategies that you've learned today, not only for yourself, but for the people that you work with, the kids that you work with, the parents, the clients that you work with. And when you're 100% and your cup is filling over, then you can give more. But when you're running dry, it's very hard to take care of somebody else. And so check this out real quick. I think you guys will be interested in this. So as you can see, when you deal with other people's pain so much, it's inevitable that you're going to absorb that yourself. And so hopefully that some of these techniques, these emotional intelligence techniques, are going to not only help your kids that you work with, the clients, but it also helps yourself understand how important it is that you are able to use these techniques and to make sure that you're in a spot to be helpful to the clients and to the kids that you're working with, and that you are taking care of yourself so that you are able to be the people that you are and that helping nature that is inside of you, and that barking dog is slowed down. Self-awareness is there for you, the motivation, the empathy, the social skills, social connection. I thought that was a pretty, can you guys identify with that? I thought that was something that when you guys really could connect with. So again, thank you so very much. I appreciate you guys being here. You know, I'm always impressed with the multidisciplinary team, everybody getting together on a common goal. I really think that when we can all use our resources together, that we just make everybody's life easier. So I would love to be part of your community and vice versa as a K-12 educator. I'm always interested in getting everybody's opinions on how to help kids the best. And so you're more than welcome to take that QR code, and you can find the social media outlet that works best for you, and you can use my email. Please, like I said, email me if you guys need anything, something that you liked about the conference, or excuse me, the presentation, something that you didn't like, something that you want more information on, if you want something from the slides, whatever you need. I would love to be here for you, because I know you're helping kids and there for kids, and I think we all have a common goal here. So thank you again very much for letting me speak with you today. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, should we do the thunderclap? See, I've trained y'all. Should we do the thunderclap? Should I thunderclap myself? All right, thunderclap. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you, my friends. I know. Now that I got you situated. The kids are the same way, though. They don't clap anymore. They're flopping around. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of the time. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you. Yeah. My friend, you look super familiar to me. Where? New Jersey? Are you?
I've spoken in other places before, so
maybe
I speak, but you're speaking today, so that was great.
Oh, okay. Now, are you anywhere in the Tampa area?
No, I don't go in the Tampa area. Not as often. No.
That's probably.
I went on vacation that once.
Right, but not anything professionally per se.
No. But
interesting.
But I go into other conferences. I've spoken so.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
cool. Well, thank you very much, and you made a lot of good, additions to it. So I really appreciate you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you.
One of the things I'd be interested in
Yes.
is about what social media has done to our kids with emotional intelligence. Like, are we seeing that effect on kids because you have more of that isolation, even though they are connecting on their phones, but very different than the way I was raised or other people. So that's because I'm seeing a different generation.
Yes.
Like I said, even with my staff.
Yes.
Some of them, I'm like.
Thank you so very much.
Like very little emotional intelligence.
Thank you
right?
very much. Thank you so much.
And they're almost in that cusp, right? But I mean, I'm just thinking for my own, like my youngest is 17, and I'm thinking, I wonder how she is on some of this
Yes.
stuff, right? Because
Well,
of social media.
You nailed it, because this is what we're seeing. And it comes to self-awareness, the self-regulation. Oh, they're all the whole thing.
Yes.
Empathy online. But this is the problem, is that the kids, especially the motivation aspect of it, is that they go on Instagram, especially Instagram, and they see everything perfect. They don't see the struggle. They don't see the hard work. And so they internalize that as, oh, I need to be perfect, or I need to be like these folks. And so what ends up happening is that they don't see the hard work and the determination and the discipline. And then what ends up happening is they fail, and they're looking, well, how does so-and-so have 1 million subscribers or 500?
Right.
And so, and I know I work harder than them. And so then all of a sudden their endurance runs dry. And their perseverance is done. And so I see that frequently. And then of course the online bullying, because when you're not face to face, it's real easy to say something, and then how are they going to react to that? And then it becomes, even, I've had people, on my stuff, just blabber on about stuff, you know what I mean? That's completely irrelevant. But then that self-regulation occurs.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
It's all that.
And the awareness of, do I want to continue with this? You know what I mean? And all the rest of it. So you are 100% correct.
Well, because I see too the motivation, because my kids didn't have cell phones till they got to high school.
Right.
A lot of people didn't, but
Yep.
when I would say you're off your electronic, like they weren't
Yep.
allowed to have electronic devices during the week,
Yep.
during school.
Yep.
They had much different motivation because they had no choice. Like I'm not going to, right? Like they had to go out, or they had to do something, or they sit there bored.
Yes.
So that's what I think is going to be interesting to see where we, in years from now,
Yep.
emotional intelligence, like you said, we better start teaching this more and more.
Right away. and look it up. This is interesting. How the internet, social media affects children's dopamine, the motivation and reward sensors in the brain. It's like gambling, flipping through, and it's like pulling the deal on the, the slot machine. You know what I mean? And so what ends up happening is that they get this hit, oh, cool video, and they keep scrolling until they find another one, and then they get a hit, and then what ends up happening is that they literally, their little neurons that are just developing are moving in that direction. And so it can be very addictive, and it can change the motivation. And the dopamine will rise, but then it goes down below baseline. And so then it's the motivation to want that same feeling again. That's how we've evolved to hunt or to propagate the species. And so we have to be super careful with that. And I see that as an educator. I'm sure you see that with your employees that don't get off the phone because they've grown up with them. Like it's tough for my children too, because I want them to be, sophisticated and technology literate, but at the same time, I don't want that issue that can occur through the dopamine and the motivation process, Yeah, no, it's a rabbit hole, but it's legit,
It's tough stuff. I mean, I just can't imagine these kids now, like what it's going to be like.
Oh.
Really?
Well, now we have,
There are places now for kids addicted to the phone.
Yes.
They have treatment centers.
Yes, and then AI's coming out, and then the metaverse is coming out, and it's like 10, 12 years. I don't even want to know. I know. Thank you so very much.
Good, thank you for my gift card.
Oh, no, hey, you earned it. Finger of fortune. And please, like I said, email me or look me up on anything. I'd love to be able to continue the conversation if we need it.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Do you mind just giving me the
Yes.
phone and the
Yes, I